All right. So good evening once again. Last week when we met, we looked at introduction to language, and I introduced you to the definitions of some of the schools of thoughts. And we saw the common elements in all these definitions, and one of them was systems, how language run on systems. And we explained that the system are usually the rules that the language operates by, that the community share in communicating. As part of that rules or systems are all the grammatical issues in communicating. We can't just allow for anybody to say anything or everyone to say just anything. So there are rules to keep all mutually intelligible, meaning that we can all understand one another. So that's going to progress. I have posted the course outline on the LMS. I've also put a material on today's lesson there. I've opened a forum for all to contribute and could carry some marks. I hope you can hear me.
Yes, madam.
Yes, madam, we can hear you.
You attend to all of that. When the class is over, I will upload the PPT for today. Unfortunately, I don't know what happened. I lost my PPT for last week's lesson. But I'm reliably informed that the lessons are recorded and the audios are sent to you. Do you have them now? Do you have that particular lesson? Has it been sent to you? The recorded lesson last week. Has the recorded lesson been sent to you? Hello? Hello, can you hear me, please? Hello? Miss Yvonne, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
All right. I asked if the recorded lesson for last week has been sent to you.
Not yet.
All right. So I have to work on a new document actually, and then I will forward it to you. It may take a while, but it will definitely come through. Okay, so I will share my screen for today's lesson, and then we'll quickly go through the grammatical units. All right, so for week 2, we are looking at grammatical units. The English language is structured that we can put them into various units from the least to the highest, okay? So today, we will look at the least and then we'll move on. The objectives for today's lesson is that by the end of the class or this teaching and you reading the materials posted on LMS, you'll be able to explain what a morpheme is, differentiate between the major and minor word classes, identify and explain the key features of the word classes. So keep these in mind as we go. Now, like I mentioned, the English language has units, language units, grammatical units, and it works from the least to the highest or the lowest to the highest. The highest of the units is sentence or a sentence, and the least of it is a morpheme. The morpheme is what we'll begin with. We'll look at morpheme, And then we'll move to word, and then phrase, and clause, and sentences, and some other rules regarding sentence construction. So this is how it looks like, the diagram here. There are 5 ranks actually, and the least I've mentioned is the morpheme, and then the highest is the sentence. When we continue, realize that these build on. So for instance, morphemes come together to form words. Words are put together with a head word to make phrase or to make phrases, and then phrases or more words are put together to make a clause, and then a clause or more of them are put together to make sentence, and from sentence we move to paragraphs, and then all of that, discourse and all of that. So today we will start with morpheme, and then we'll move on to word. So morphemes are the least grammatical unit, or the lowest grammatical unit. And by that, it means that when you have moved from the sounds, the alphabetical sounds, when you have moved from there, you put these sounds, because individually, these sounds may not necessarily make any meaning, okay? These alphabetical sounds may not make any meaning, but morphemes are a combination of sounds and they make meaning. But they also are not words too, though some of them are words. And as we continue, you understand what I'm talking about. So morphemes are the least grammatical units, and they are classified into 2 types. The first type is the free morphemes. Free morphemes. Now, I want you to note that free morphemes are also words, okay? They are also words. So free morphemes are also independent words, like they are words that can stand on their own. So words, some words are also morphemes, like I mentioned earlier. So free morphemes are also words, and they are words that are complete by themselves, have their own meanings, and they stand, unique by their meanings. Now, the difference will show when we look at the other type of morpheme, okay? So have in mind that the first type is free morphemes, and they are words. They are words that are complete by themselves, and they can stand as independent words in sentences, okay? Now, when we come to the second type of morphemes, it's called what? Bound morphemes. And as the name suggests, it has to be added to something else for its meaning to fully be complete or to show. So it's like they are dependent on other morphemes to have their meanings communicated or understood. Now, there are lexical words that are incorporated with other words. So like I said, they are dependent on other morphemes. They are lexical items. Remember I said grammatical units. So they are lexical items, grammatical units that are added or depend on other morphemes in order to make meaning. And as we continue, you'll see the differences. And bound morphemes operate by means of derivation. Either those morphemes are added to other morphemes to derive new words, or they are inflected. And by inflection, it means either for plural or singular markers for verbs and plural markers for nouns, okay? And they are also done through by what we call compounding, putting 2 words together in order to form that particular morpheme. For derivational morphemes, I've mentioned that such morphemes are added to other words to derive new words. So the word derive, derivation, okay. And such morphemes, bound morphemes, are sometimes called affixes. They are called affixes, and affixes can also be divided into two, what we call prefixes and suffixes. Okay. So for derivational morphemes, we'll see examples here. And I've said that derivational morphemes help us derive new words. So expect that if we add a bound morpheme to another morpheme, the meaning of that word may change. Are you following?
Yes, madam.
Yes, madam.
Okay. So if we add bound morphemes to other morphemes, for derivational types, the meaning may change. Now, I want us to look at the prefixes and suffixes here. For prefix means before the other morphemes. The morpheme is put before other morphemes, and suffix means that the morpheme is put after the morpheme that we are going to add into the other morpheme. Okay, so example of such prefixes that are morphemes are ex, an, pre, post, this, im, and lots more. Now, if you look at these prefixes, you can add them to some words and you realize that the meaning will change. For instance, mute. Let's add the prefix or the morpheme it becomes mute. The meaning is not the same, is it? The meaning changes. So we have derived a new word from that. So the semantics, the meaning, the semantic of the word is changed because a prefix, a morpheme, has been added to it. So of morphemes are what we call derivational morphemes. Okay, they change the meaning of the word. Now, I want you to, at the comment section, create your own new words using any of the prefixes that have been put here. So either ex, an, pre, post, this. Let us know the original word, the prefix you are adding, and the new meaning that is derived. Okay. I'm going to be very patient with you. All of you spend a minute and write an example there. I'll quickly look at that. Okay. Exchange. The morpheme added is an, and the word is expect. Now, for your word, Peter, your word unexpected has two to the main word, which is expect. And the other morpheme is the ed added to it to mark tense. Okay. Or it could even be expected as an adjective, and then an is added. Good. Engaged, disengaged, very good. So clearly you are following. So we'll just move on. All right. So there are also suffixes were able to change the meanings of the words or the main words. Suffixes also have that tendency of changing the meaning of the main word. And examples of suffixes are what we see here. Age, ing, ful, able, ness, hood, ly, etc. Okay, so again, let's quickly form our derived words using these suffixes. Let's quickly do that. Use any of the suffixes here to create your examples. Okay, so I'll quickly look at the comment section to see what we have there. Adult food. Happiness, happy, and happiness. Okay. Parent food. I see all your example. Beauty, beautiful, very good. Quickly. All right. So you realize by adding these suffixes, respectful, praise, neighbor, neighborhood, seriousness, joyful. Now, I want you to take a minute. What is the part of speech of the main word, and what is the part of speech of the derived word? So look at the example you wrote down. What is the part of speech of the main word, and what is the part of speech of the derived word? Or has the meaning changed? Has the meaning changed? Okay, so Prince is saying no, madam. I'm sure you wanted to write madam and not mad. Changeable. All right. So change as a verb, changeable, I'm sure, is an adjective. So the meaning, well, slightly has changed, and the part of speech has also changed. Okay. All right. So that's it with the derivational morphemes. Derivational morphemes. I want you to keep that at the mind of your thinking, because we'll look at other types. Okay. We'll look at other types. Now, so derivational affixes can cause semantic change, and we've seen examples from the chat section. We've seen unhappy, not happy, equals to means sad. Retell, tell again. But tell doesn't have the again idea attached to it. Now let's look at the and this. Defame, decompose, uncover, discover. All these meanings have been altered. Its semantic has been altered because of the morphemes that have been added to. These are prefixes that have been added to the main words. We also have what we call the inflectional morphemes. Inflectional morphemes. So we've looked at derivational morphemes. We are now moving on to inflectional morphemes. But remember, the two major classification of morphemes are what? Bound and what? Free. And under bound, that is where we find these other types, derivational and inflectional, and the other types that we'll look at. So for inflectional, they adapt to the existing words so that they function effectively in sentences without changing the category of the base morpheme. English has several of such, inflectional morphemes. So the suffix s functions in the present simple as the third person marking of the verb. Now, when you inflect a verb, often is to either mark singular or plural in the present tense, or to mark other forms of tense, like adding ed or d to verbs. You are inflecting them to make them mark tense or indicate time in your sentence. Okay, so you realize that the meaning of the word doesn't necessarily change, but then it gets additional information of marking either singular or plural or tense. And examples are what we've just seen. For instance, he works. So the verb works. The inflectional morpheme. So the S alone is a morpheme. Okay. The letter S alone is a morpheme added to the main word work to form the word works, to indicate that the subject is singular. He works. If the subject were to be a plural word like they, the verb will not be added. And in the second, yes, we have other information, but the meaning of the word itself, the base word, doesn't change. Unlike derivational morphemes, the prefixes and suffixes that could change the meaning of the word. So do you see the difference? Do you see the difference?
Yes, madam.
Okay. The rest of you, do you see the difference?
Yes, madam.
Yes, madam. Yes,
Please,
madam.
when I ask a question, kindly respond for me. That's the only way I know you are following. Okay.
Okay, madam. Yes, madam.
All right. So the suffixes ed, we add ed to regular verbs. And as we continue to look at these words or parts of speech or word classes, you will see the differences between the regular verbs and the irregular verbs. The regular verbs take ed for their past tense, and irregular verbs may take en or other forms. Okay, so these inflections, these morphemes are used as inflectional suffixes. Remember, suffix comes after the word. Inflectional suffixes to communicate tense and singular or plural marker. Okay. So for verbs, S will indicate singular present. For nouns, S may indicate plural. And as we continue, you will see what I'm talking about. Again, we can inflect by adding ing to verbs. And the tense of that verb will change. So instead of probably moving from an activity that happens every day, it probably will become a progressive verb. Okay. So for instance, eat, eating. The action itself, the meaning or the semantics of the verb eat, eating is the same. But there's an additional meaning of progression. So the verb is still the verb, but we are indicating that by adding ing to it, by inflecting with the morpheme ing, then we tell that, okay, this particular action is ongoing. It's the same with all other verbs that we can add ing to. So now, when we see ing, we don't think of it as just 3 letters written down, but we see it as a morpheme that can bring progression to a verb. If we see ed, we don't just see it as 2 letters together, but we see it as a morpheme that can indicate the past tense of a verb. So morphemes by themselves have meanings, but the meanings may not be entirely complete if it's not added to a free morpheme. Okay, so to some extent, morphemes come together to form words. Okay, some words may not need other morphemes; they are the free ones, and then free morphemes may have other morphemes added to them to still form words. Because when I ask you what is eating, you can't say it's a phrase or it's a sentence. It's still a word, but there are two morphemes in that word. And the two morphemes are the free morpheme, study, and then the bound morpheme, ing, which has been inflected to the free morpheme, so that we know that the action in the free morpheme is ongoing. Right. Like I said, it could also be used to mark plural in nouns. You know, all these are the examples we've been given are for verbs. Okay. So we say if you add s to this verb, it becomes singular present. If you add ed, it becomes past form. If you add ing, it becomes progressive. But for nouns, when you inflect it with s, often it may indicate the plural form. Okay, the plural form of the verb. So example, dog, dogs, and we can name several of them. Car, cars. I'm sure you are writing some down. Please write some down, as many of them as you can think about. Immediately you inflect it with s. S is an inflectional morpheme, a bound morpheme, added to the free morpheme dog. And the meaning is that now it's no more one, it's two or more. Okay, so that is the meaning. Also inflects nouns. Inflects nouns to show possession. So for instance, Laura's book. Nyamiye's bag. We've inflected it with the morpheme S to indicate that this bag belongs to somebody, or the person possesses something. And that is how inflectional morphemes and suffixes work with nouns. Also for adjectives, we can have inflectional morphemes working there. So for instance, we can add ER, EST to adjectives to indicate comparative and superlative forms. Okay, comparative and superlative forms. So comparative, as in if you are comparing two people exhibiting that trait, and you want to indicate that one is of a higher trait of that than the other, you may want to use the comparative marker. And therefore you use the EST. So the inflectional morpheme is for verbs, and we can have them for nouns, we can have them for adjectives, we can even have them for adverbs. When we add ly to words, and then they become adverbs. Okay. Any questions so far? Okay, so houses, bags. Yeah, Jonathan wrote bags, Solomon wrote houses. Great. Okay, so let's try that for the adjectives and adverbs. Write your examples for adjectives and adverbs. Inflectional morphemes, adjectives and adverbs. Everybody should write one. There are 23 of you. Everybody should write one. For comparative and superlative forms. Tough, toughest. Okay, tougher, toughest. Very good. God sent. Very good. Higher, high, Yeah, okay. You inflected for with the superlative form. Gilbert, tall, tallest. Okay. Gilbert, you also didn't bring the comparative, but the superlative is here. That's good. Faster, fastest. Erica, yeah, don't pray. That's good. Hard, harder. Holy amenuveve. Amenuveve, you didn't bring the superlative, but that's okay. Clearly, you get the whole concept. Yes, I'm waiting for more examples. Shorter, shortest, Enoch. So your comparative and your superlative forms are here. Bigger, biggest. Gilbert, Mensah, I have seen yours. Solomon, smart, smarter, smart is very good. Cold, colder, coldest, Yvonne. Okay, right. So clearly we get the inflectional morphemes too. So for bound morphemes, we've seen derivational morphemes and we've seen inflectional morphemes. And for inflectional, they appear to be suffixes coming after the word. But for the derivational, we saw prefixes and we saw affixes. Okay. If they are questions, and then we'll move on. Strong, stronger, strongest, Roland. Hey, wet, wetter, wettest. Why is everybody laughing at Jonathan's example? Jonathan, we need to confirm yours. Weak, weaker, weakest. Okay. All right. So the morphemes, there are two morphemes in weaker. The free morpheme, weak, and the bound morpheme, ER, which is an inflectional morpheme of making or telling that this adjective is the comparative form of that adjective. All right. I see good, better, best here. For good, better, best, is there an inflectional morpheme? This doesn't work like the inflectional morpheme. Okay. Becomes an irregular free morpheme. Okay. Because for its comparative and superlative forms, the form of the word changes completely. Yvonne, is that clear? So it's an irregular free morpheme. Okay. Just like when we start looking at irregular verbs, you realize that some of the verbs, when you add the past ed to it, it changes form. We call them irregular verbs. So that's the same idea working here. Yvonne, is that clear?
Yes, please.
All right. Okay, so I'll just call on one of you to explain the difference between the free morpheme and the bound morpheme. But I'll give you a minute to think it through, and then I'll call your name. When I call your name, you unmute and you speak. Okay? It's good I get to know your name quickly for participation. Have you downloaded the course outline? Has anyone downloaded the course outline?
Yes, madam.
Yes.
All right. So you see participation, behavior, and everything is there. So make sure you participate in all our discussions, especially if I ask you to write, please write. Okay. Will someone volunteer or I should just pick by random? Samson, Samuel, Ajin. Yeah, please answer the question. What's the difference or what's your understanding of the free morpheme and the bound morpheme? Samson is absent. Okay. Samson is in class, but not in class.
Madam, I'm
Michael
here.
Into, you are here. Then talk. Hey. We are waiting for you. So what's the difference or the explanation of a free morpheme and a bound morpheme?
Please, free morphemes can be independent, but the bound morphemes, they cannot be independent. Example is on, next, and the rest.
Okay. Okay. I want you all to also think through the derivational morphemes and the inflectional morphemes. What did we say about it? These two, derivational morphemes and inflectional morphemes. Michael, I'm back to you.
Please, I am the one who just spoke.
Oh, sorry, I thought it was Samson, forgive me. Solomon, are you in class?
Yes, madam.
All right, we are listening.
Madam, please, you said inflectional morphine and
Derivational morphemes. Okay, Solomon is wasting our time, so we'll just continue. Bosses, please speak.
Okay, ma, with the derivational morphemes, it
Yes.
changes the word's meaning.
Okay.
And the inflectional morphemes, it modifies a word's grammatical function, but doesn't create a new word. For example, cats walk, adding s make it cat, and doesn't change the grammatical function. And also
Okay.
walk. When
All right,
added
Prince, your hand is up.
Hello, madam. Hello.
Internet is. Is it from here? Because I have 4G.
it might be from his
madam,
end.
we can hear you perfectly. So
Yeah, can you hear me?
yeah, we can hear you.
I think I lost you briefly. Yeah, I lost you briefly. So, Prince, if you spoke, I did not hear you. Prince, oh. Okay, Prince, did you answer the question?
Yes, madam. Hello, madam.
Yes.
Yeah, I put the answer in the chat box.
Okay. Mm. Jan. All right. And we can move on. So we'll just continue. Now, the conversation about morphemes ends with the last type, which is the compound morpheme. But there are more examples here that we can look at. For derivational, aphysis and surfaces. But I won't go into that because we've already finished with that discussion. We've looked at adding ly to adjectives and also to, yeah. So we'll quickly move to actually, what's my internet doing this? These morphemes are actually words, but they've been formed with several morphemes, or two or more morphemes. Okay, so for instance, mother-in-law, there's the word mother, or the free morpheme mother, free morpheme in, free morpheme law, and they've been put together to form one word morpheme, which is mother-in-law. It's the same with pickpockets. You see that you see two free morphemes there to form one word. Football is the same thing, and there are several of them. The compound morphemes, there isn't much to say except that we've put two free morphemes together to form that word. So that word by itself is one word, but then it appears to have two or more free morphemes put together. Okay. So that's all there is to the compound morphemes. I mean, we can decide to do a grammatical study of it and analyze that, okay, pickpockets. So there is a verb and then a noun that has been put together, or two nouns, foot and ball, or noun and then prepositions. We can do that analysis, but I don't want us to use our time for that. But to let you know that the compound morphemes are morphemes that are actually two or more free morphemes put together to form one morpheme. Okay. All right. Now, when the discussion of morpheme is closed, the next grammatical unit we are going to look at is word, the word or word. Now, words are also put into classes, and that's what we call the word classes. Okay, so all the words that we put together or combine to speak English language belong to the different word classes, or what we also call part of speech. And we'll be looking at that shortly. So word classes are also what we call part of speech. And we know all the parts of speech, don't we? We know all the parts of speech. Now, the word classes can be put into two major classes. We have what we call the open word class and then the closed word class. Open word class, closed word class. Open word class, closed word class. I hope by just the name you understand what it means for a particular class to be in either open or closed. Okay. Now, when we say open word class, it means that the classes of words there are quite immeasurable, one, and we continue to add on to the list. So it's like an infinite list. We can never know all the nouns in the English language, or all the verbs, or all the adjectives, or all the, and even when we have known all, we still continue to derive or form new ones. That is what we call the open word class or open class. Now the closed class it operates just the opposite way. So the number of pronouns there are, we may never add more to it. The number of determinants that exist, we may never add on. The number of prepositions that exist, we may never add on. And so with conjunctions, auxiliaries, verbs. So that is the meaning of the open and closed word classes. So you realize that for open word classes, you see parts of speech like nouns, verbs, adjectives, adverbs. And then when we look at the closed class, you see pronouns, determinants, and all the others that are listed there. So the word classes are, like I mentioned, they are part of speech. And for part of, we know that it's part of speech. Noun, verbs, pronouns, adjective, adverb, preposition, interjection, conjunction. And determinants are usually put under adjectives, okay? Determinants are usually put under adjectives. So when usually we discuss determinants, they may come under the discussion of adjectives. Or when we start to look at nouns, that's when determinants may feature, because its primary function is to help the noun communicate its meaning. So we're going to look at these one by one, but of course, you also do part of the work. So the notes that I have put on your LMS has details of all of them. We will do what we can before the class ends, but your responsibility is to go to LMS, get that document, and make sure you study the notes there. Please, is that clear?
Yes, madam.
All right. So I've already explained the open word class. You can also call that the major word class, okay? The membership to this class is open-ended. Open-ended, we can continue to add on to the list and the list. I mean, new words are added to them frequently. That's why they are called open word class or major word class. And major because when we communicate, imagine we spoke with only determinants or pronouns. I want you to think about it briefly. Construct a sentence with only pronouns and determinants and conjunctions. And think through what you have said. What meaning are you conveying? So it's as if the minor word classes or the closed word classes, they help the major words to communicate meanings that exist in the open word classes. Okay. You take a minute and think through a sentence that has no noun, no verb, no adjective, no adverb, and construct it, and let's see if it will be meaningful. Unless there's a context. Maybe in a context of conversation, and somebody goes like, is it? You know, that's just an auxiliary verb, which is acting as a main verb and a pronoun. But ordinarily, if somebody out of nothing says, is it? You wonder what they are talking about. What is this person talking about? But if they were to put nouns together and even these minor word classes were missing in that communication, at least some meaning would be conveyed. Let's say somebody goes like, mango morning, every day. At least some meaning has been conveyed, right? You know the fruit mango. You know the time of day that is called morning. You know every day referring to also time. So some idea is communicated. It becomes clearer and more accurate when these minor word classes are put in there, and then the meaning is complete. But the minor word classes can't really do that. They don't seem to give even the partial meaning that these unarranged major word classes have been able to communicate. So they do not have meanings in themselves exactly, okay? They depend on the major word classes to be meaningful. And that's the difference between these two major minor word classes or open closed word classes. So from the slide, you see that the major word class has nouns, adjectives, verbs, adverbs as its members. The list of nouns, verbs, adjectives, and adverbs is limitless, inexhaustible, and impossible to quantify. I mean, the person who, even native speakers who deem themselves very fluent in their language cannot say they know all the nouns in English language. And even it's going to change with time. Okay, so that's a major difference between these two. I think I've mentioned that depends on the major word class to carry meaning or convey meaning. Since that definition has been established, we are now going to look at these individual classes of words. And we will talk about and all that. But like I said, the notes are there in that document, and it's quite simple. So I hope that you read it so that when you are asked questions, you won't say you were not taught. Now, so we'll move straight to identifying the word class. We can definition of words by meaning. A word that names people. I mean, we all know the definition of nouns. We've been learning the definition of nouns since we were in basic school. So where's the word that names people, places, things, concrete and abstract things are nouns, okay? So anything that names something is a noun. So we have an inexhaustible list of nouns. Your names, the places you live, all the abstract things you can think of, all the concrete things you can identify, all the other people you know and their names, all the places you've seen and heard about, they are all nouns, okay, because they name things. We can also identify nouns by the form or what we call the morphological criteria. When the word is written, how it looks like can tell if it's a noun or not. So if you see a word with some particular suffixes or some particular morphemes at its end of the base, you can tell that is a noun. For instance, often words ending with tion, shin. Often, a lot of such words are nouns. Okay, so that's what the morphological criterion is talking about. So, words like attendant. So the suffix ant, or, such words are often nouns. And as I mentioned them, write your examples in the chat section. So words ending in ant, or are often nouns. I'm not saying there won't be exceptions. There will be, but often they are nouns, okay? Write your examples, so let me see. Not just that. I've mentioned tion. Tion, so you can also name examples like that. Pastor, doctor, independent, creator, applicants, induction, conductor, caption, well, great. Exclamation, instructor. Okay, so we all agree that by the morphology of some words, we just know the classes of words they belong to. Okay, and we've seen tion, or, and then ant, and yeah, there are lots more. Good, very good. I see all your examples. They look great. Now, we'll come back to noun. I want us to quickly digress and look at a few examples for the other word classes. For instance, create, perform, etc. These base forms are verbs. Dangerous, merciful. The suffix ous and ful make these words adjectives. So when you see words ending with full or ous, you may think of them as what? Adjectives. There are exceptions, but often, yeah. And then when you see words with word, ward and ly, they are often also adverbs. So at a glance, one can conclude that the form of the word tells the class they belong to. Using this criteria, one must be cautious as words with the same forms may belong to the other word class. And that's what I was explaining to you, that there are exceptions. It may not entirely be so for all words. So when you use them, you have to be careful. And if they are new words, I mean, it doesn't hurt if you confirm with your dictionary if the class of the word is a noun or it belongs to a different form of word class. Okay, that is the caution we must keep. Now, by the function of the word, how the word performs in a sentence can also determine its class. So we know by definition, by morphology. By morphology meaning how the word is written. And now we are talking about what's or function the word plays in a sentence. That's what we call the syntactic criterion. Okay. So we know that the function subject in sentence, the function subject in sentence often are performed by nouns. So when you see that a word is performing the function of a noun, of a subject in a sentence, the first impression you may get is that is a noun. There are exceptions to it, but the function of subject is key to the word class nouns. Now, I want us to look at these examples. They stand there for several hours. The stand is for comedians. They stand there for several hours. The stand is for comedians. Now, think through these two sentences. You realize that the function the word stand perform in these two sentences are different. How different are they? Look at sentence 9 and 10 on the slide. 9 and 10. Sentence 9 and 10. How do they differ? Moses' hand is up. Okay. Yvonne, yeah, I can see your hand. Please speak.
So for the sentence 9, the stand there is for a noun, meaning a particular group of people stand. But then with the sentence 10, the stand is for comedians. Okay, that one too is a noun. The stand for sentence 9 can also be a noun because it's a place where people stand. And then 9 rather is a verb because it's an action, if I'm not wrong.
Read the first sentence and tell me your explanation again.
So the first one says they stand there for several hours. So with the stand is an action, which is a verb. And then the second one is
Very
the
good.
stand comedians, which is a noun.
Very good. So you see, you mixed it up. It's good you have clarified that. So the first sentence, the word stand is performing that function of action. Okay, what they do there. But in the second sentence, it's indicating a place. And that's a noun. Okay, so if you adjust the word stand, we all will say that it's a verb because stand refers to an action. But when it's used in sentences and how it is used, the function it performs in the sentence will determine whether it's performing the function of a noun or a verb, or even adjective or an adverb, depending on the verb we are talking about. But for this particular example, it's the first one is a verb and the second one forming the function of a noun. Okay, so they stand. They is the subject, stand is a verb, and then the rest continue. I'm not going into that. The second one, the stand is for comedian. So the stand becomes the subject, is the verb, and comedians follow. Now, I see that Peter has written something. The subject in sentence 1 is they, which pronoun And the subject in sentence 2 is comedians, which is noun. Peter, I think all your words and letters didn't appear here. So I'm struggling to make a meaning out of it. So if you can relook at it. Yeah, I can see that. It happens to all of us. Right. So I'm glad you understand what I'm talking about. The word classes of words. We've seen by definition, by morphology, and by syntactic. So by definition, words that refer to action are verbs. Words that name are nouns. That describe can be adjectives. By morphology, we saw how the ending of some words may determine whether they are verbs, and a word with ing. You may want to look at it as a verb until probably you find out it's not that. So the morphology of the word could also inform you the class of the word and all the function it performs in a sentence can also help you determine the class it belongs to. So now we are moving straight to nouns, okay? I'm moving straight to nouns. What we talked about had references to nouns, to verbs, to adjectives, and so now we are coming to nouns. So some features of nouns by morphology are some of the examples you gave, okay? And there are more here. So words ending I, O-N, E-R, E-E, M-E-N-T, C-E, C-Y, and the examples here are often nouns, okay? And for I-O-N, I think we've already given examples of that. Let's think about examples for ER. There's teacher, there's villager here. I want you to think about examples for ER, ER and EE, all three, MENT. These three morphemes, I want you to think about words that end with these. You can write them at the chat and I'll look at it. Snatcher, master, officer. Oh, good. Carpenter, very good. You can move on to the next. Employee, very good. Richard, inductee. Okay. You can move on to the next dependence. Very good. Lecturer. Okay. All right. So let's move on to the management. Very good. And the document, prophecy. Great. Okay, let's move on to CE. CE. Let's move on to CE. I think vacance, vice, acceptance, produce. No, produce will be a verb. So produce will be the noun. So produce. Okay. Footballer. Spice. Okay. Different. Singer, payee, existence. Okay, Gilbert, you gave us 3 examples. That's good. It's a fancy. Dice. Fluency. Newscaster. So clearly you agree. Diplomacy. Latency. So clearly we agree that a lot of the words that end with these letters are nouns. But like I said, we cannot assume that that is it for all the words we will ever come across. There are going to be exceptions. So when you meet a word and it's new, all you do is to look it up. Okay, what's the word class of this particular word? Service, abundance. I see all your examples. Okay, that's great. So by morphology, we've seen all these examples. What about CY? What about CY? What about CY? I think I saw tenancy somewhere. I see diligence. I see IC. C. Pharmacy. Democracy. Okay. Consistency. Accurate. Okay. All right. So by morphology, these words are discrepancy. Okay. These are great examples. Now, let's look at other features of noun. Have number. Okay, nouns mark number, or nouns can have plural forms. So aside the morphology of the word and the fact that nouns name things, places, and all of that, it's also can mark number. So nouns is the word class. Okay, let me say this. The word class noun can have singular and plural forms. So nouns have singular and plural forms. There are some irregular nouns that their plural forms may remain the same. You see, there are always some exception to the rule, but that doesn't mean we should forget about the rule entirely, okay? So nouns have singular and plural forms, and we can talk about a lot and lots of them. We have the regular ones and the irregular ones. The ones that by adding its S, the spelling of the word changes a bit, okay? So this book belongs to me. Book is singular. The bags are mine. Bags, plural. And if you have realized, if the noun, when acting as a subject, is singular, the verb will take singular form. If it's plural, the verb will take a plural form. So for instance, this book, if the sentence were to read these books, the verb will not be belongs, it will be belong. This bag, the verb will not be are, it will be is. So you realize that verbs can also mark number, okay? But even that is only in the present tense. So nouns have number. And I mean, if we want to go into nouns and number, we will name several examples and then regular and irregular. But for now, I want you to think of some nouns and then add their plural forms to it. Let's do that one quickly and then we'll move on. You think of a noun and then you add its plural form to it. Let's quickly write that and then we'll move on to the next item. Rooms. Okay, so rooms. Please make sure to add the singular form, okay? Then you put some kind of hyphen or whatever, comma, and then you add the plural form. So boxes. So you see the plural form for box, they require that we add E. So boxes, trees. Very good. Only 3 people have written. Houses. Structure, students. Very good. Man, men, man, men. So you see the plural form for man, you didn't add S. It changed, its form changed. And that's an irregular noun, okay? By that, it means in forming its plural form, the word changes. Wives. Women, okay? Children, that's another good example. Mouse, mice, that's another good example. Wolves. Leaves. Lovers. Hey. All right. I think Jonathan, you like giving controversial answers, so it's not Jonathan. Teeth. Okay, so you see how the form of this also changes. Holy, yeah. Computers. Okay, let's think of nouns that their plural form won't change. Let's think of some of them. Nouns that we don't mark their plural form with S. Sheep, very good. Yvonne, that's good. Nouns that we don't mark it, by marking its plural form, you don't add S to it or ES. We want examples of such nouns. So they remain the same. Fish, very good. Holy and Yvonne. Okay, joy. All right. Joy. Moose. Aircraft. Okay. I think we've already given examples, but what about nouns that by forming neat plural form, they completely change in spelling? Nice. Data, very good. They change in form. Feet. Medium, media, very good. Bacterium, bacteria. Stadium, stadia, very good. Right. So you see the exceptions I was talking about. So there are some nouns that you don't need S or ES to mark their plural forms, but they have plural forms that may change entirely or even remain the same. So these are the exceptions to the rule. So we've looked at the morphology of nouns. We've looked at the fact that nouns mark singular and plural forms or have number. When we say nouns mark number, it means that nouns have singular and plural forms. Okay. All right. That's not all. Nouns perform specific functions. And I think we saw one in the sentence where we use stand as an example. Nouns perform the function of subjects, objects, complements, and when you read the notes, you will see these functions there. Of course, if you have any question, you can always send a message to my email. So quickly, we'll look at how verbs also appear. We know the forms of nouns. We know by definition what they are. We know by their morphology how they appear. We know by function how they perform in sentences. You can't see my slide. Yes, I think I lost you people entirely, so I'll just share it again. Forgive me. I should have done that. Can you see it now? Can you see it now? All right. Okay. So like I was saying, we've looked at the morphology of nouns. We've looked at their syntactic functions, let me say that, in sentences. We've seen by definition that they name things. By function, I've mentioned that they can perform the function of subject, object, complements, and if we go into detail, there are some other functions too that they can perform. But I want us to look at the nature of verbs too. I want us to look at the nature of verbs. Now, for verbs, verb also mark number. And by that, we've seen some examples previously. But I'm going to use these two examples to explain that. When we say verbs mark number, what it means is that verbs may change form if the subject of that verb is singular and the tense is in the present form. So for instance, the driver behaves well. The verb behaves has an inflectional morpheme S added to it because the free morpheme of this verb is behave. Okay. Now, S has been added to it because the subject is singular. And also, the tense of this particular sentence is present. Now, let's look at the second. The dog wags its tail. If the sentence were to read the dogs, the verb will not be wags, it will be wag, its tail. Sorry, their tails. The dogs wag their tails. But in this context, the subject is singular. It's just one dog. So the verb will also be singular. And that's why we've added S to it. Now, this marking of number is clearly seen and used when the tense is in the present form. If we were to change this to the past, it wouldn't matter if the subject is singular or plural. Now, I want you to think about it. Let's change the sentence, the driver behaves well, to plural form and see. All of you write it down. Change the sentence, the driver behaves well, to the past form. And let's see how it's going to read. Everybody write it. The driver behaves well. Write that in the past form. The driver behaved well. The drivers behaved well. So you see, it won't matter if the sentence is in the past form. So the number marker is obvious and happens when the sentence is in the present form. Okay. The driver behaved well. The driver behaved. I'm excusing all those sentences with small letters. I'm excusing you for today. Next time I'll note your name down. So make sure you begin a sentence with a capital letter and end it with a full stop. Okay. Jonathan, you're laughing. Yeah, I know the keyboard can be funny, but let's pay attention and then write well. So the driver behaved well. You see, when we change the sentence to the past, whether we make it the drivers or the driver, the verb will not change in any way, but immediately it's turned into the present form. Then if the subject is singular, it means that the verb must have an inflectional S added to it. And that's the difference. So verbs also mark number, but that is how it's not like the nouns. They mark number depending on the subject and the tense of the sentence. I see a lot of you are correcting your sentence. That's very good. So whether driver or drivers, the sentence will still be correct. Right. So that is one feature of verbs. They mark number, especially in present forms. Now, the morphology of verbs. The morphology of verbs. I think one thing we can quickly run to is the ED forms and the ING forms. Okay, ED forms and the ING forms. So when you see a word ending in ing, you may want to look at it. But the first idea, if it's a word you do not know, the first idea may be it's a verb. Until probably you look it up. All right. So the ing forms of verbs. Yeah, Solomon, you called me.
I wasn't hearing your voice.
Yes, I muted it for a second.
Okay, madam.
So ing forms, ed forms are all the morphological nature of verbs. Okay. Yeah, to mark tense especially. So ing forms progression, ed forms past forms of the verb. They are also inflected for aspects, and aspects are under tense. Okay, there are two major tense, present and past, but under present and past are aspects. Aspects, present, progressive, all those indications of verbs are all what we call aspects. And we will look at that this semester. We'll look at aspects and tense this semester. So you see and understand what I'm talking about. So they mark tense through inflections like adding, ed, ing, and the other auxiliary verbs like you can see was, is, had been, has, have. We add these words or morphemes, free morphemes are added to verbs to communicate tense and aspects. All the other word classes don't do that. This is very unique of verbs. Only verbs are used to mark tense and aspects. There are instances where other verbs may be used with verbs to mark aspects, but the key function participle, past participle, and all the other aspectual meanings, it is the verb that will help you do that. Okay. Now, so the two main issues for verbs are by morphology and inflection. All the aspectual elements like auxiliary verbs to mark tense and aspects. So that's for identifying this. Okay. The function of verbs in sentences are often, it is the verbal elements. You see, verbs are like the fulcrum, the central point in sentences. It's what gives complete thoughts in sentences. So, for instance, let's look at these two sentences. I have a pink phone. Let's make it I a pink phone. We just know that the verbal element is missing. The bird beautiful. Some meaning is communicated because of the major word classes, but the meaning is not complete. So it's as if verbs bring completion to the meanings in sentences. That's why I say it's like the fulcrum of the sentence. It is what's like hold the sentence in place so that a complete thought is achieved. And when we start looking at phrases, you'll see how relevant these verbs are. When we start looking at clauses, you see how relevant verbs are. Because phrases would be a group of words with a head word now. And because there's no finite verb in there, that structure doesn't make a complete thought. So verbs are very important and key in constructing sentences, okay? And its major function is by saying it is the verbal element. It's indicating the action or the time or the state of the subject or whatever idea is constructed in that sentence. Now, I want us to now move to adjectives. Adjectives. By morphology, and when I say morphology, now you understand, okay? By the form of the words, what are some of the possible morphological nature of adjectives? Think about it. What are some of the, think about all the adjectives you know. What are some of the morphological nature of adjectives? Full, okay, so beautiful. Give more examples. LY. You can give examples and then you can, Let us know. So let's say full, then you give us an example. If you agree with Solomon, then you also write examples, okay? Happiness. Hey, happiness. Yvonne, happiness. Have you forgotten NESS? Happiness is a noun. Wonderful. Wonderful. Quickly. Joseph, quickly. Maybe you should give us a sentence where quickly is performing the function of an adjective. Happiest. So you see that I was waiting for you to come up with the comparative and superlative form. Okay, so the ER and the IES. The ER and the IES. Careless, grateful. Good. Right. Right. Beautiful, grateful, careless, happiest. But one most obvious morphological nature will be the ER and the IES, because then it's telling the comparative or superlative nature of that adjective, okay? But we also know that there are some adjectives that cannot take the ER and the IES to form comparative and superlative forms. So usually those ones we use more, most. Think of such examples. More, most of such adjectives that do not use the ER and the IES, but they use more and most to form their comparative and superlative forms. Most intelligent, very good. So intelligent, good. Most beautiful. So we can say intelligenta, intelligentious. No, is you are not speaking English. Maybe you are speaking Chinese. Most handsome, most important, most beautiful. Very good. These are all great examples. So when you see words like this, you just know that the word following it is an adjective. Okay. So aside the superlative and comparative nature of forms, words that are preceded by more, most may also be adjectives. Okay. Now, let's look at syntactic nature, how they behave in sentences. If you see them modifying a noun, then you can think of it as an adjective. Okay. If you see it modifying a noun, either at the subject side or at the predicate section, you just know that it's an adjective. Let's think of more examples. Okay, I see most generous. I've seen two or more most beautiful. I think I've seen two most important. And some two I've seen. Yeah, let's think of more. Most awful. Okay. More beautiful. Most reliable. Now, let's think of words ending with "bo." Are there adjectives we can think of that end in "bo" or "le"? Most strongest. Hey, most strongest is the Roland. Strongest is the superlative form. So what is most doing there? Most capable, most meaningful. So Roland, do you get my argument? Most comfortable. Very good. Roland, what do you think of my argument concerning the example you wrote? Do you want to say something about it? Roland, are you there?
Yes, madam.
Well, sensible. Yeah. Your example. Strong, stronger, strongest. And you've added another comparative marker to it. So it makes it ungrammatical. And I hope you agree with me.
Yes. Yes.
Yes. I see a lot of you are writing adjectives that end with BLE. Sensible, credible, humble, legible. So you see, as we go on, we discover more and more morphological nature of the word class adjectives. We've seen the comparative and superlative markers, the ER and the IES, and the more, most. And we've seen, now there are some classes of words too that are adjectives. For instance, colors. Think about it. Whenever you use colors in sentences, often they may be modifying a noun. Hey, somebody said more money. Well, what does that mean? What does that mean? Are you saying money is an adjective? Why are you people celebrating more money? Joseph Nate, come and explain. Explain yourself. Joseph Nate. Most adventurous. Joseph, you are waiting.
It's an error. Madam, it's an error, sir.
Okay. Because money is not an adjective, okay?
Yes, please.
Unless you have a way to, yeah. All right, most applicable. Joseph has already explained, so yeah. Okay, so now let's think about the functions they perform. I've already mentioned that they modify nouns. I want you to think about an adjective modifying another adjective. Think about that. Think of an adjective modifying another adjective. Because adjectives modify other adjectives too. Think about that too. Adjective modifying other adjectives. Okay, maybe we should deal with, okay, bright blue. That's very good. Attractively nice. Solomon, attractively nice. Look at it again. Effortlessly good. Sweet little girl. Okay. Very tall. Very is an adverb marker. Let's look into that. Very is an adverb marker. Let's look into that, please. Big old house. Very big. Strikingly big. I'm looking at all those words with ly with my 4 eyes. Aren't they indicating manner? And immediately it does that, then it becomes adverb. But I mean, you've written great examples here. Cleverly outspoken. So like I mentioned, all the ly words seem to be indicating manner. And once they do that, it becomes adverbs, okay? They become adverbs. Really talented. Really. I think really is also an adverb matter, but it won't help if we check. Bright yellow shirt. Extreme pain. Extreme pain. 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 Michael, pain. Look at pain. Is pain an adjective? Yeah, so really is an adverb marker. But it's still good because when we start looking at adverbs, adverbs modify adjectives and they modify verbs too. And I see great examples for that. So here are adverbs modifying some adjectives. Okay, Michael, I want you to look at your example. Pain. Pain. Look it up. Is pain an adjective? White brown box. So white brown. Okay. But the head word is box. High quality. Very good. Fair enough. Right. So the concept of adjectives modifying other adjectives is not far-fetched. It's very possible in English sentences. Okay. All right. Okay, so somebody has responded to Michael's pain is a verb or noun. Please, when we are in the chat room, let's be as formal as possible, okay? Let's be as formal. But remember, we are in the classroom, so high density. Density. I want you to look up density. You see, because you are writing two words, some of them will need context to determine whether they are adjectives or even nouns. Okay. So, but look up density. Look up density and confirm with us. All right. So this is how far we will come today. But I'm going to do some questioning and answers. Remember, I said that by the end of the lesson, you should know what a morpheme is and all the issues about morpheme. You should know what the word classes are and the nature or feature of these word classes. We've looked at nouns, verbs, adjectives. The function of adjectives, I've already mentioned it. They modify nouns. They modify other adjectives too. For verbs, they indicate the action of the subject or the time of the subject. For nouns, subjects, objects, complements. totally heartbroken after the game. They were totally heartbroken after the game. So totally heartbroken, I guess. Jonathan, I guess totally heartbroken is what you're referring to. Please use your microphones, please. Jonathan, please. Yeah,
Madam, yeah,
yeah. Are you referring to totally heartbroken?
yeah, or
I want you to look up totally. Totally.
okay.
No, look at that. I'm not saying it's wrong or correct. I want you to look at that.
Yes, madam. It's
What did you say?
absolutely, completely, and so completely
So
or something.
totally is an adverb. Okay.
Okay.
It's
It's
an
an adverb.
adverb.
Sorry.
Yeah. Yeah. It's an adverb. But if you say, for instance, that was a total failure. A total failure. Even that. So it's like complete failure. Yeah, even that, it will still mark as adverb. But still depending on the context anyway. Quickie old dog. So quickie modifying old before the all modifying dog. Well, that's a good example. Super nature. Nature. Super nature. Nature here. Jan, in your context, nature, look it up. Look up nature, okay? All right. But I clearly see that you've gotten the concept of how these word classes by morphology, they look like, by syntactical functions, they look like, and also their unique features. For instance, for verbs, we've seen the inflectional morphemes to mark tense and to mark number. For nouns, we've seen the inflectional morpheme of S, ES, and sometimes even changing form completely. For adjectives, we've seen words and how sometimes B, LE, FUL are adjectives. But like I said, there are exceptions to these. So you have to be very careful. Okay, I see crystal clear. That's very good. Extremely hot. Extremely, the word extremely is an adverb. Yeah, it's an adverb. So maybe we should quickly talk about adverb. For adverb by morphology, often they end with ly, okay? Not all the time, but often they end with ly, and they modify verbs. They modify adjectives too. So in modifying adjectives, for example, extremely hot. And all the other examples, we said, okay, look it up. So that's for adjectives. But by morphology, they are often ending in ly. By function, they modify the verbs in the sentence, and they can modify adjectives too. So these are the general nature of these three word classes. There are others. For instance, the minor word classes, we are yet to look at any of the minor word classes, but they also have their their features and functions. And remember, I said for the minor word classes, they do not allow for new inputs or additions. They seem to be fixed. And we can, even now that they have introduced several genders to male and female, even the pronoun is still struggling. They are still struggling with the she, he, it's there. They are still around there. Maybe someday when one or two of them is standardized, then we can say, okay, pronouns have increased. Are you following? So when the different genders were mentioned and all the arguments around it, how quickly we had names for them. So you see, quickly the word class now increased because several words came, describing the various genders. But now let's move to pronoun. Unless you know one, tell me one pronoun that can refer to a transgender woman. So that's a typical example of how, say again.
She.
That is still she. The she that we know. So the minor word class, it's hard to increase the number or add on, but it's very easy to add on to the major word classes. Okay, quite easy. All right. So unless you have questions, I'll caution you to go to the LMS. I've opened up a forum. You are all 4 subscribers, so you have to make a new need for more information. I'll put this slide also there so that in case you want to refer to anything in it. I'll repeat that tagline is there. So you should check that out. I'll see how possible it is to a book as a resource for the course. Okay. I don't know how copyright issues work with LMS, so I'll check those things. And if it's possible, I may add some books to LMS so that you can read them for more information on all the topics that we have treated so far. Any questions? Angry. So aggressively. Aggressively. The word aggressive is fine, but aggressively, because of ly, quickly turns the adjective into an adverb because it's indicating manner. Okay, the manner of the aggression. So yeah, that would be an adverb modifying an adjective. But if you're looking at it as 2 adjectives, then I'm sorry to say that it may not work. Super hot. Yeah, I think super hot is great. Richard, I already mentioned you to that you should look up extremely. Creaky old. Yeah, I think I've looked at that too. Unless there are other issues you want me to attend to, if we've come to the end of today's lesson. Any questions, please? Please respond either by microphone or by typing. Deep purple, that's correct. Deep purple. Any question? Madam, can you please form a sentence with 2 or more? Yes, actually, there's a way of doing that. So we call that arranging adjectives, okay? You can't just combine adjectives anywhere, especially when they are more than 2. You need to arrange them, and there's a rule for that. So maybe I'll find a document on that and attach to LMS. Okay, Gilbert, have I answered your question? There's a rule. You can have about 6 adjectives modifying a noun, but you can't do it haphazardly. You have to arrange them, and there's a rule for arranging these adjectives. So I'll find a document on that and attach to the class's LMS so that you see how it's done. Is that clear, Gilbert? Please respond. All right. So nice meeting you again. We'll meet next week. Bye-bye.